Yes, sir. Thank you everyone for being here and being a part of our summer 2023 FCI live series. We are well into the first week. This is actually our last presentation of the first week. And this is a topic we've had a lot of requests for. And I can tell by how many people are here and all the people who have already signed up to be here. Lots of people wanting to know more about creating systems for communications and containing documents and keeping track of it all as a board of a startup food co-op. So I looked around and I found some people to come talk to you about it. Grant Kessler and Matthew Ruffey from Chicago Market, their current and past board chair, are here to talk with us. We'll be starting with them in just a minute, about their systems and the successful systems they've set up to create that kind of communication and flow that has made their co-op more successful. So real quick, some bits of housekeeping. Please do mute. If you are not currently muted, please mute yourself. Because we're recording, it can really affect sound quality and everybody's ability to hear. So if you could go ahead and mute. Unlikely to ask you to unmute, but if the speakers do during the Q&A, of course, that is okay. But otherwise, please stay muted. We are video recording. Number one question I get asked. Yes, we are recording. The videos will be available to you. We put them all out on the same day, which will be the afternoon of Monday, July 3rd. You'll receive an email from me if you have registered for anything, and clearly you did because you're here. And so you'll receive an email from me that afternoon saying, here's the links, and you can go find those videos so you can share them, rewatch them. They will all be available. Okay, and with that, we want to real quickly thank our champion sponsor for the summer 2023 FCI Live series, National Co-op Grocers. Thank you to them for making this series possible. And with that, we're going to dive into what was the most requested topic for our summer 2023 series when I surveyed folks, which is how do we communicate and organize all of our information as the board of a startup food co-op. So I'm going to turn it over to Grant and Matthew. Thank you both so much for being here with us today.
Truly our pleasure. Yeah, we're very, very excited and happy to share some knowledge and hopefully answer a bunch of great questions. And JQ, we're gonna prove you wrong. This group, I feel it. This group is gonna be excited. We're gonna have so much to say.
All right. So everybody see the slides, okay?
Yes.
So moving from the topic of talking about shared communication systems and document repositories to quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Grant Kessler. I've been with Chicago Market for 10 years now. First led our steering committee before we had a full board, and then led our board for about 7 years as board president. I've watched and helped the co-op grow from a good idea and a bunch of dreamy thinking to a large organized organization that is well positioned to grow into a multi-million-dollar business. I've also spent time on what we call our dev team, organizational development team, which is responsible for a bunch of things, but some of the responsibilities they have pertain to this topic of keeping track of our systems. And we'll talk a little more about that in a minute. So I've been on, between that and being on the tech team, I've been close to, over the many years, the process of setting up and building systems like we're going to talk about. Matthew, tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm Matthew Ruffey. Before being a part of the co-op, I've been in business, a bunch of different businesses for about 23 years, with everything from being the COO of an international company to doing a startup to some nonprofit board work. And I say all of that not to brag. Okay, maybe you brag a little bit, it's always fun, but I say it really to say it doesn't matter what size organization you are or what you're working in, these types of systems help. I promise you, we're going to talk more about that. But as far as, you know, the more important part, I joined Chicago Market 4 years ago, or when you're sitting on a meeting with Grant, you have to say only 4 years ago, because he's been here for 10, he's been here since the start. But we're really, really excited. And where Grant came on and, you know, talked about where it was building the concept, it was building all of this, I had the pleasure of coming in once the concept was already created. So I've been able to focus almost entirely on getting us to the reality now. And that reality certainly has a lot of systems and processes and procedures in place for that. So we're both really, really excited to be here today and to share with you some of our knowledge and thoughts and opinions, and certainly are going to welcome questions. I will say for the questions, If you have any along the lines, throw them in the chat. If we can work them into the presentation, we will. If not, we'll just make note of them and we'll certainly answer them at the end. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Grant.
Thank you. I was pushing advance and it wasn't going. There we go. Okay, so briefly, what we hope to cover for you today is defining what we mean by shared communication systems and document repositories. So we'll give you some definitions as sort of we define them, so that you can follow the rest of the conversation. We'll talk about some of the tools available out there briefly. There's tons of them. We're not going to go into detail on them. It's more important for you to understand that you want a tool. We'll talk about what the benefits of those tools are, how you may combine some of those tools. Possibly the case is that one won't get you there. And then we'll go through some best practices and definitely have time at the end for questions. As Matthew said, share questions in the chat. We'll keep an eye on them. And with that, I will turn it back to Matthew, who's going to talk about defining things for you.
So we'll get into a lot more detail, but we did want to just start with level setting of what the heck is a shared communication tool? What is a document repository? So don't worry, when we skip to the next slide, it doesn't mean we're past this and you have to know everything from this. This is just a quick definition of it. But when we talk about a shared communication tool, really, when we look at that, it's a software platform that's designed to facilitate seamless collaboration. It's designed to facilitate efficient information sharing amongst all your team members. It's going to provide you with a centralized hub where individuals can communicate, where they can exchange messages, share files. And yes, the files part is a part of the shared communication tools. They get more robust with document repositories. Grant will talk about that in a second. But even at just the shared communication tool, it does allow you to have a place to share files and manage tasks in a very unified and organized manner. So that to me is what a shared communication tool is. Grant, why don't you talk to us about what a document repository is?
Right. So when we talk about document repositories, we're thinking about a single place, preferably, where everyone on your team, you board members, your volunteers, whoever you invite to the table to participate as worker bees in building your co-op, you store things. You store your documents, you store your photos, your graphics, your design files, your legal documents, on and on. All those things are stored in one place. It's in an organized folder structure so that everybody kind of understands how to find things within that space. Great if it has a search capability also. It's accessible to everybody. So this isn't siloed. This isn't blocked by the fact that it's hanging onto somebody's email that you don't have access to. It's available to everybody. Of course, you as a team can determine some permissions, and maybe it's, when I say everybody, it's everyone you choose to let have access to it, put it that way. So you might have one group that accesses things here and another group that accesses a slightly different group of things, but you want to try to have those as simplified as possible and the document repository as single as you can get to. You don't want it on people's personal computers. The hit by the bus clause says you should be building an organization where the organization owns the documents, has the documents, and where they survive people. It should be long-lasting and available to everybody. It's good if these document repositories also have document editing capabilities. So the ability for you to get in jointly and work on a document and make changes. It's saving those changes, but it's also saving versions of it for you. So when we talk about document repositories, we're also talking about shared document editing within that. And I think that covers what we mean by document repository. And now I will bounce it back to Matthew to talk about what happens when you might combine these systems.
I get the easy job on this one because the combined systems take all that information, just put it together, right? It's a little bit more complex than that. But really, when we talk about combined system, it is bringing those two things together as one and using the most powerful components of each of those to give you one robust tool. In our case, for Chicago market, we pair a tool called Basecamp and Google Drive together. Sometimes we even use Dropbox as a part of that as well. And so that's what we're doing with it. That does not have to be your solution. It just happens to be that we took those two systems, we paired them together to bring the best tools and the best capabilities of each of them to light. So the combined system is really going to be one-stop shopping, right? So this is a centralized centralized communication and real-time collaboration hub with those enhanced document organization and version control components that Grant was just talking about. There's certainly more to it, but if we're just breaking it down to those definitions, that's what I would call these in bringing this together. Grant, I think you're going to talk to us about some of the tools that are out there as well, so I'll hand it back your way.
Right. So for example, my bounce buttons moving fast on me. These are just a few of the tools that are out there that accomplish some of these things we're talking about. It's by no means all of them. And again, it's not the scope of this conversation for us to show you everything and go through and give you the pros and cons of each of them. I think that's some of the work you need to do. And I hope that after hearing us today, you'll kind of know what you should go look for in each of these as you start creating that sort of pro-con list for your organization, because everyone's organization is different. We don't have a vested interest in any one in particular, although as Matthew said, we have a lot of knowledge around using Basecamp and Google Drive as a pair with some Dropbox assists at times. But again, we're trying to generalize as much as we can. Most of what we talk about is, hence those two opening terms, shared workspace and shared document repository. These things, some of these are free, have free versions, some of them cost something. This is an investment in your organization, and even your time is valuable. So if you spend a bunch of time on a free tool that doesn't get you to the finish line, that's something for you to evaluate. We would encourage you to at least give some consideration to finding a way to budget something for it, if the right tool for you is something that has a cost to it. Your success is worth probably spending something on to be organized. And you'll, I hope, see why and what that can lead to for you. As we mentioned, Matthew covered, we use Basecamp and Google Drive because Google Drive has some functionality that Basecamp is a little light on. Basecamp does have shared document repository in it. Google Drive is a little more robust and handles the financial things like a spreadsheet better. And a presentation like this, you're not going to build that in Basecamp. We would use Basecamp to link over to those, so we know how to find them through Basecamp, but they're more likely to be on Google Drive. This presentation, Google Drive presentation, for example. With that, I will turn it over to Matthew to talk about the benefits of shared communications tools. So this gets at the meat of why the heck do you want these things?
So it's funny you talk about this presentation being a Google Drive. The entire building of this presentation was using these tools. I happen to be sitting in Italy right now, and Grant obviously is back in Chicago, and so we were communicating and doing all of these things remotely. And tools like this allow you to do that. You usually may not be this this remote when you're working on things, but still to be able to do things on people's time wherever they're at, these tools give you that ability. So why should you use these shared communication tools? And if you think back to the definitions, we're kind of going back to that first one, right? So before we get to the combine tool, let's just talk about the shared communication tool. And there's so many reasons, but at the end of the day, if there were just one line, and for any of you that know me, verbosity is taking over right now, and one line is almost impossible for me to say. But if there were that, I would say that these tools truly allow you to foster collaboration and improve communication. And that is very, very important. So how do they do that, you ask? First, you're sharing everything in one place. So from easy onboarding documents for the new person that comes in, just imagine the day when you don't have to send that crazy PDF that's emailed to the one person that you realized was out of date on one page a minute later. You can get away from that. Or worse yet, the printed document that you hand to someone. This can all be in one space with to-dos, with activities, with links, with repositories of information, all in one place, one hub. It can be the single point of truth. And that single point of truth, and I think this is one of the most important pieces, especially as we grow our organizations, that single point of truth is open and transparent to everybody. We all have finite amount of time to spend on a project. And I'm sure you all feel this, where very rarely do 11 board members or however many you have on there, plus your volunteers, plus anyone else that's working with you, or a GM that you're talking to, whatever those may be, very rarely do all your schedules align where you just have time to just sit around and chat and to catch everyone up on every conversation that you had. So when you can start to use tools like this, everyone can have access to those conversations. Now, Grant pointed something out about document repositories, and this, it's true here too. When I say everyone, yes, you can limit, you can segment, you can secure things. So everyone that should have access to certain information can have access to that. So everyone can catch up on a conversation. Everyone can participate in communications in a time that's convenient for them. Everyone can search back for something that was said a few weeks ago or in that board meeting. You come back in, you start to use this tool for communication, and it's not lost in someone's email. It's not that text chain between two of you that only ends there. It's very open and allows people to work and give their feedback, frankly, on their schedule. So it works really, really well in bringing that openness and the transparency, and helps you to bring people so that everyone's up to speed on everything that you're doing, again, with whatever limits you need to put in place. But it's a very, very powerful tool from that standpoint. Shared document storage, and no, it is not as robust as things like document repositories with the group editing, but shared document storage, even if you're just using the communication tool, this can be your single point of truth. You may be linking out to other places. You may not store everything here, but it can be as close to that as you can be without combining the systems. To-dos. And a lot of systems, they will all call them something different, whether it's to-dos, whether it's assignments, whether it's tasks. But you have the ability to assign things to people, again, with that openness in there, so that you know everything that's going on. So do your other board members. And so when someone needs to raise their hand and say, I'm underwater, or I'm going to take a trip, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I just need help, instead of having to set aside a time to completely bring people up to it, you can often just reassign that task to the next board member that says, hey, I can take this. And by the way, if the communication is all there, they can catch themselves up on what's been done so far. So truly, this helps you to get things done. It helps you to lead robust discussions. It's going to cut down on time that you have to discuss things on your board meeting, because you would have reviewed documents ahead of time. You might have commented back and forth. It's searchable for you and others into the future. And so it's just a really, really powerful tool that helps us to get out of those silos of information that we all sit in, whether we mean to or not. And then when you start to pair that with document repositories, it gets really powerful. And that's the only segue I could think of, which brings it to Grant here to talk about document repositories.
Nicely done, I'll take it. So the value of having all of your documents stored in one place that everyone can find are some of the same things that Matthew's talking about in terms of access and transparency and shared information. You have a centralized place that everything is filed in, and it's organized, and you can find things, but so can other team members, and so can a team member who you don't know yet because they're 2 years out. Everyone can find these things on an ongoing basis. It's organized. You have important materials there. You have reference materials where you can get to it all. This facilitates knowledge sharing around onboarding, on bringing new, whether that's board members or volunteers, by the way. It's easier to bring people on and show them around quickly in a digital space where things are organized, and you can show them a list and say, here's your little packet. This is all the links to all the things that you need to know how to find. Here's here are 15 bookmarks you should have. It ensures continuity of information over time. It ensures that your documents and your data and things have longevity, and also that if you update them, everybody has access instantly to that newly updated item. Matthew, I think, hinted at the updating possibility, and that's a terrific one too. They set you up for taking advantage of things by having a shared document repository. Suddenly there's a grant opportunity that lands on your plate, and you, with a short timeline, how do you take advantage of that? How do you get to the finish line to get an application turned into this grant application? Well, if you've written grants before and you've saved the content from them, you can easily go back and pull language out of them, make tweaks, make adjustments that fit the new need, but you don't have to start from scratch. Again, nor does a team member who hasn't even joined you yet. A team member a year from now doesn't have to start from scratch because they can go back and look at things your organization has written, grab boilerplate and pull together a grant application much quicker because you've organized things. Another similar example, Chicago Market had an opportunity this spring. Our chamber is celebrating the fact that they're 100 years old this year, and they were throwing a big event, a free event for everybody in the neighborhood, big party. And they were reaching out to organizations like ours who were chamber members and enthusiastic chamber members and had a lot of good positive experience with them and things, to see if we could provide some material about us, about our organization, about how we feel the chamber is valuable to us and that sort of thing. And because we were able to quick grab historical photos of our building, which we had in one place, boilerplate about what Chicago Market is, and a couple other little odds and ends, whatever it was they were asking for, finding those things was super easy for Matthew and me. We pulled it together fast. It was, it didn't take a lot of bandwidth from us. So it wasn't the most important thing ever to do, but it was valuable to the organization. It was one of those things we might have had to let go, except that, hey, this isn't hard because we have all this stuff. Package it together. And the result was beautiful board at this event, all about Chicago Market, and thousands of people there see it. And it was easy for us to do. So you get that kind of exposure, you'll get access to things like that, and you want to be ready to take advantage of and be lucky because you've prepared for things well. So having your ducks in a row before you even know you need them in a row is super valuable and easier on everybody. So we talked about the benefits of both shared communication systems and the document repositories. Matthew, what the heck happens when what are the benefits of having both? And take yourself off mute, sir.
Unfortunately, shared communication tools and document repositories can't fix the mute button on Zoom. So I'll just put that out there, set your expectations. You still have to click that one. We do love these. We love these tools together. And Grant, you just touched on something that I think is really important. We use this. We use these every single day. So we're not talking theoretically. When we're talking about this, this is stuff that is actually happening, that is helping us, and that we're working within every single day of our lives that we're working on Chicago Market work. So I think one of the great examples of starting to bring things together, and this is something that we at least do yearly with board elections, sometimes more often if we have to fill a seat. But let's talk about onboarding and orientation. So instead of an offline document, and I talked about it before, that PDF packet that you hand someone or a folder with a whole bunch of information, we're able to take that all online. So we've been able to simplify, to streamline, and to make open to everyone who needs to see it, the list of everything that they need. So this is the core documents. These are the components that Grant was just talking about. Your logos are there, historical photos are there, but it's your onboarding documents. And those onboarding documents are living and breathing documents because they're online. They're not just a once-off, a point in time type PDF that you might be sending to somebody. These are online and they're out there. So when we bring a new board member on or a volunteer comes onto the system, we're able to show them first the system. And we put a lot of our effort and a lot of the training into, here's where you go, here's how you use, again, in our case, Basecamp, but whatever that may be, Basecamp, Slack, there's a bunch of different tools that are out there. Here's how you use the tools that we have. Certainly here's the expectation that, we are going to use this tool, and we'll talk more about that in a bit, but we talk about that system, and it's the one way of doing things, the one way of communicating so that everyone can see things. And there are multiple options within the tool, but one place for all of your needs. So by doing that within this tool, we have already simplified the process of welcoming and integrating these new volunteers and board members. We provide a structured and, quite frankly, very professional looking onboarding experience. It doesn't feel like it's just the co-op down the street, right? This starts to feel like, oh, this is real. This is a company that has, it feels professional. It brings them in, it draws them in, and it gives them the tools that they're going to need to be successful. We get to share the best practices and the guidelines that we have through the tool that we're using. So we eat our own dog food, right? We tell you to use this tool and everything's there because we use the tool. And then we talk about what you need in that tool. And when you have questions, where do you go? Yeah, you got it. You go in the tool and you ask that question. So that's one of the ancillary benefits too, is that when a new person comes on, how many times, and I bet every single one of you on here, a new person came on and you were reminded of something that, oh my gosh, I forgot that we even had that, or that that's a rule, or that this is the thing we do. It's nice when it's in this open tool, when it's in this place where new person comes on, we welcome them. And a lot of us will go in and we'll kind of click through their onboarding document and we'll remind ourselves of what's out there. We'll remind ourselves every single time, even if that's once yearly at the board elections, or whenever you're bringing a volunteer on, it really does. It helps to remind you of what you are doing, where you are. It brings you back into the oh my gosh, this is why we're doing this. Look at this historical document. Look at what we're building. And it's all in one system. So if you can't tell, Grant and I are both pretty passionate about the importance of this, because it is more than just a system. It helps to foster the communication and to build on your brand. Both for people on the outside that you can act on real quick, but for people that are coming on board to feel like they're part of something big. So that is one example of when we're bringing people on and doing those orientations, we absolutely use this tool, and it has helped us immensely in improving those onboardings and orientations in every area that we do that. So that's on the now, but I think one of the other important parts that we want to talk to you about is yes, you need to plan for the now, but there's more about future proofing and how do we take it forward. So Grant, help us through some of that.
Right. So you are building a multi-million-dollar business. You have a fiscal responsibility to your owners to build an organization that survives over time. Your organization is bigger than you or any of the board members sitting right now or any of the volunteers active right now, right? It has to last over time. And these systems are ways to future-proof your organization so that, because I've said it a few times, so that the person who comes on 2 years from now or a year from now or whatnot has access to materials. These kind of things are forward thinking and making sure that your organization helps people in the future and that your culture and your ideas and your documents and things survive and keep moving forward. It's actually pretty exciting when you, as a board member who's been around a while, see these things start to work and start to see that, oh my gosh, we did X, and you realize we did that because we've been building this organization that supports that all the way up to now. We've built the culture, we've built the governance docs, and we've housed them in a nice place. And it's not surprising that we get to where we are now, but sometimes it puts a smile on my face when I see it happening. We are building with these tools smooth transitions for board and staff. Matthew talked a lot there about onboarding board and volunteers, but don't forget also you onboard a GM at some point. And our tool has been super helpful for bringing our GM on. It preserves institutional knowledge and expertise that you should be protecting. Again, back to that fiscal responsibility. You need to be protecting this stuff. It shouldn't be in one person's head or in somebody's email that y'all have difficulty getting to or can't get to at all. So having these things captured and collected, historical and legal documents, legal especially, again, fiscal responsibility, you have to be collecting those and keeping track of those. So it's right that you think about a tool with which to do that stuff. So these are the ways to do that. I'll encourage you to do that. So Matthew, best practices, what hot tips have we got for them on that front? And yeah, there you go.
Well, best practice number one is when you hand it right back to Grant, because this is his slide. But I'm glad to go through them if you would like.
No,
because you wrote some gems here, and I would look really smart if I talked about what you put down.
I'm in the habit of bouncing back and forth. You're right. This one is mine. I'll take it. So, what are some best practices for using these tools? You do need to set them up well and set them up right, and be aware and working at the care and feeding of these things. Just because you have one Just because you spend some money on one doesn't suddenly make magic happen. You need to set the expectation that this is the tool your organization uses, or these are the 2 tools, or however you use them. Set the expectation that everyone uses it. When we are talking to future board members, people are thinking about running, we make it very clear that we're a Basecamp organization and we use some Google Docs, and you will communicate with us. And we do have a Google email for everybody, and we want them to use that, but that's for outward communication. But when they're communicating with us, they're on Basecamp with us. And so we clarify that stuff. And so it shouldn't be any surprise to them. We're setting that expectation. It's later captured also in the document they sign at their board agreement. So point is, we set the expectations for people, so it's no surprise, and we keep making sure that that's part of the culture for all of us. We train them if they need it. Sometimes people are quick to pick these tools up and sometimes not. So it just depends. We train them. We offer ongoing support. We offer friendly nudges when they start to use the tool and they make little mistakes. We're cool about that, but we help them see how to get better at it. So we make conscious efforts to be making them better users over time, right? Even having tools, there are definitely multiple ways to use them. There are widgets and gadgets and doohickeys in them you may, as an organization, not want to use, or you choose to use them differently. And all that's fine. We do the same. And sometimes we even have to build our own little hacks because we wish that tool would do this. It's not quite great at this. So what can we do? So you need to capture those methods of using the tool, the protocols that you have, and document them, put them in a document, put them in your document repository, and make them available to people, and make sure people understand them. So capture how you use the tools and make sure that everybody knows how to use them. Also, make a concerted effort to appoint somebody to sort of be in charge on this, right? Think about having a team that's a kind of the librarian. So for Chicago Market, it's been that org dev team forever. We're the team that thinks organizationally, thinks about the organization's growth and process. And so it was a natural thing for this team to be in charge of the processes around our tools. But just make sure you have somebody kind of, and not a person, because they're not going to be there forever, right? We put it into a team charter. It's a cultured thing that way, and it has life beyond any one person. And so there's always somebody, a couple, 2, 3 people on our team, kind of keeping an eye on things and going, hey, we're off the rails with use of Basecamp, or people aren't doing this or that if things get out of hand. We're the ones that can train people. We're the ones that bring new board members on. And also, the way you use those tools may change over time too. So if you make edits to your documents or different ways of thinking about using the tool, again, we would make edits to our support documents and make sure people know that, hey, we're going to do something a little different now in Basecamp, or Basecamp comes out with a new tool and we have to train everybody. So it does evolve over time. So again, having a team who's responsible for watching that evolution, both in your organization and maybe with the tools, is valuable. Make sure you develop those processes, make sure you document them. And hey, celebrate, because these tools are, these are the things that mean you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time something comes up, right? It's worth doing this work to set up the care and feeding and plan for it. And the reward for you will be that you don't always have to keep reinventing yourself. Always be asking yourself, as a group, as this team, hey, if we were to lose a key person, they leave, they whatever, are they taking information with them that's going to hurt the organization because we don't know how to find it anymore because it's stuck in their head, or it's stuck in their email, or it's on their home computer, or their home computer crashes, or whatever. Those are bad practices. So always be asking yourself, how can we be building a better system to avoid that problem? So I think that's the core part of establishing these best practices, is making sure that you're again future-proofing your organization by looking out for trouble spots. Matthew, wrap us up.
Even remember to come off mute that time. We're getting better and better. First, we know we gave you a lot of information. Please don't feel too overwhelmed by this. This was intentionally not a how-to. There is no one how-to on this. Sorry to say that. But we wanted to talk to you about the why you want to, why this is important, why you should be thinking about this. Grant talked about celebrate. Do that a lot. If you've already done one small step as an organization, you got a shared communication tool, you did a document repository, or heck, if you just uploaded a few things off of your computer while you were sitting here because you had an oh crap moment and knew that those documents shouldn't be sitting on your laptop and you put them in the cloud, celebrate that. That's a good step forward. Don't be afraid about these things. You are not going to solve this all in one fell swoop. That's okay. But on the why you want to, systems are important. These types of systems make a difference. And it's because you are investing in your organization's success. Grant spoke earlier about how you have to be ready to be lucky sometimes. When that grant opportunity that he was talking about comes along, or you have a banker who wants to chat, or you have an investor who could be swayed by pulling out some draft renderings of what this store is going to look like, you will be amazed at the amount of times that something big like that happens that is not scheduled. So put these systems in place and make sure to invest the time into them. Train your board, train your volunteers to use them so that you're ready to be lucky when the opportunity arises. Again, there's no perfect tool. I will say this 100 more times, there is no perfect tool. If you get on the phone with some consultant and they tell you there is a perfect tool, stop them for a second and say, hey, it's okay. I know you're trying to sell me on this, but let's take a step back and just talk about how good your tool is and why I might want to use it. Because it's going to be different for every single person that you talk to. It's going to be different for every organization. There are fantastic tools out there, and there's advantages and disadvantages to each. Find the one that fits your needs, find the one that fits your budget, and gets you access to better organizational tools overall, and then make it a culture of using them. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good here. Make that first step, start to do things, it will make things better. And start now, even if that means starting small. There's that proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. It goes the same with these types of things. Should you have already had it in place? Sure, we all should have. But if you don't, that's okay, just start now. When you do that, you're investing in yourselves, you're investing in your owners, you're investing in your store, you're investing in the future, you're investing in success. You're planning for business continuity when things happen. So plant this tree today. It will help you now and it will help you into the future. And then keep at it. Whatever you choose, keep at it. It takes care and feeding, as Grant said before. And don't beat yourself up when issues happen. Just like how your board, your volunteer groups, your employees, heck, the organization as itself is a living and breathing thing, so are these systems. You're going to make some mistakes. Don't worry about it. Just move forward and do better the next time. Try to do unique mistakes. When you make one mistake, just don't make that same one again. You'll find a new way to mess it up. I do, and we're pretty good at this. Open it up for questions in here just a second. But before we do, Grant and I just wanted to thank you so much for your time and attention today. I know it's the end of a long day, it's the end of a long week, and we're just honored to have had the opportunity to speak with you all about this. He and I have had firsthand experience in how much implementing these systems has helped our organizations. It truly has. We also we do consulting for other groups. Oddly, most of the system stuff has been outside of the co-op space, but we've seen it help organizations that are small and very, very large. These systems will help you. So please feel free to ask questions here. I think I saw a couple coming in the chat. Our contact information is on screen. Reach out to us. When a question hits the second after the presentation ends, which is how it always works for me, I said, oh, I wish I just knew that one. Send us an email. We're happy to help. We're happy to be of service. And we are really, really looking forward to hearing about your success stories. So if you implemented a system, let us know. I would love to hear about it. I'd love to see it. Let's compare notes. Don't be shy. And so with that, we'll open it up to questions. But truly, thank you for your time today. JQ, as far as questions, I see a couple in chat, but as long as it's okay, I'm happy for people to come off mute and ask if they would prefer, but how would you like to?
That's totally up to you. If you as presenters are comfortable people coming off mute, feel free.
Absolutely. There's one in the
We,
chat at
go
this
ahead,
point.
Grant.
No, I was just gonna say, Sheila is asking about a tool called ClickUp. Do you have exposure to that, Matthew?
I actually don't. I'm interested. Let's go to the next section. I'm going to look it up just to make sure that I'm just not drawing a blank.
Comment that they'd hope to, Marcia had hoped to see some actual examples.
Understood, Marcia, and I think we're happy to show you something. It's so specific to how we implemented it that I think we started building that way, and we took a step back to say let's talk more about the why you should find the right tool for you. Because if we show you what we did and it doesn't fit, it might turn you off from the idea of the system, because you're going to say, oh, that Basecamp thing that Grant Matthew, oh, I don't like that. That's okay if you don't like it. It's okay if you don't like our implementation. It works for us. But yeah, we're happy to share. Please reach out to us, and we can certainly set some time with you, and we can walk you through a little bit about how we do things.
Well, thanks, Matthew. This is Marcia.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi. Oh yeah. So you said that when you're getting ready for board elections, you're letting people know that a little bit about this system, which theoretically all of your people know, but they don't necessarily know. We don't do that yet. We do have a system, but we're not asking for. So I'm used to working in systems. Other people who might be wanting to come onto the board may not. So there might be a really big learning curve there as we try to steer everybody in. And do you face that, or do you just assume that the people who are going to be involved in this already have a clue?
So for people that are coming on board, we don't expect that they have a clue of the systems that we use. And so that's why we're trying to give them the information as early as possible. But I would say one thing that we would say over and over again is, hey, we're going to talk about the system. Don't be afraid. We have a team that can help you to learn things. We will train you on this system. If you are not tech savvy, don't be afraid. We're going to hold your hand. We're going to bring you on, because we want every voice that can be a part of the board. We want everyone to feel welcome, and we don't want a system to be a barrier to that. We actually really hope that the system is additive, that it's making it more advantageous for people to join, or easier for people to join. But yes, we do run into that. And Grant, you might be able to talk more about when you were implementing these systems and bringing a board that maybe wasn't using that along for the ride.
Well, we did start with it very early, so we didn't go very long without it. We realized pretty early on that, kind of to Matthew, one of the things Matthew made a point about earlier, which is that, hey, everybody's schedules are crazy different. And yes, we come together for board meetings, but there's tons of work that needs to happen between board meetings. And so how are you going to get that stuff done, right? How are you going to have those communications? And we looked at that and realized it was work that had to happen, like it or not, and that moving the co-op forward required that. And so the way to do that for us has been Basecamp, in terms of the inter-team communication and working back and forth. And as an example, I'll even say we've written and allow and do board voting on Basecamp. So not everything, and if it feels like it's a topic that needs that's going to require and needs robust in-person conversation, then we'll have it at a board meeting. But some things do need voting, but can be handled with some online discussion back and forth. They're not as difficult, and we can keep the business of the co-op moving forward And we just have always seen that as super valuable. So we've written protocols around, well, how's voting go? There's very prescribed process for doing it online. And that's just an example of, because we need the tool because we need to get things done. But Matthew's right. We don't want to notch anybody out because they're not as tech savvy. And we've had both volunteers and board members over the years who are, hesitant with the tool, but they don't have to get it day one. We spend time with them and we bring them along. If you don't do that, you're gonna have them in the chaos of something, right? If not a Basecamp tool, then is it email? I mean, that some people aren't good at that either. So it's picking your tool and deciding how to coach everybody in it. And so that's how we've handled it. But your mileage may vary. And of course, I hope everybody got that. We're not saying everybody has to do exactly what we do. And if you have a different approach, that's great. I guess hopefully the main point is have an approach.
Grant, that's awesome, and thank you for the question, Marcia. And I'm actually going to skip one real quick from I believe it's Evan, and jump down one to Audrey's because it kind of ties into that. So yes, we do, and I'm sorry, in case anyone doesn't have the chat up. So they're asking, are you doing all your communications through the tool that you use? They tried to implement a tool before, but they had some struggles with board members saying they needed to be emailed or they need to be texted if they're expected to respond to questions in a timely manner. Made it hard to keep the momentum. Yes, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, that is a problem. It's not a problem, it's a challenge. It's an opportunity, however we're supposed to phrase this, but yes, that's a problem. We have it too. You're not alone in that. One of the things that we have done, and I've helped some volunteers more than some of the board members, but we're all volunteers, but we've helped them to utilize the tool to say, and you mentioned that you're trying to use Slack. I know Slack has this. It's in one of the options, but you can check the box that says send me email notifications for mentions or direct messages. It is not ideal, but we've sometimes helped to say, all right, well, that's step one. So have the tool send you an email, and then let's help you to build a couple of rules in your Gmail box that say, hey, when I get this, star it or flash up on screen. Heck, depending on their carrier, you can actually have an email then get texted to it's not ideal, but we have certainly dealt with that, and we continue to, even to this day. So we continue to try to bring it back to the tool, but maybe have some of our bigger power users come in and say, well, here's an option. If you did need to, if you are insistent that you have to be emailed in order to go check the tool, here's a way that you could do it that helps to solve it for them without adding a bunch of burden onto the people that are embracing the tool. And for the most part, we've found if we do that a little bit, they start to get into the tool more often, they start to learn it, they start to get used to it. And so it's a heavier issue when they're first adopting the tool than it is now for the people that are using it on a regular basis. So I hope that helps answer that question. But yes, we absolutely feel your pain, and you are absolutely right that it makes it hard to keep that momentum.
So can we jump backwards then to
yeah,
Evan's question?
please.
So Evan is asking, if you don't see it, hey, document repositories can get messy fast. What practices do you recommend for a management team and other users to put limits on what gets stored? So let me break that apart. The messy part. Remember that, yeah, and you use the word management team, and maybe that's what you mean. When I referred earlier to our org dev team or a kind of a library team, having somebody that kind of oversees all this and the tool. Yes, they do get messy. Ours has. One thing I'd say is even a slightly messy one is better than none, because it is searchable and the documents are at least there, and you can go back and reorganize them. At least they're not lost. So even though at times when we've had kind of a mess, we look around Basecamp and we're like, yikes, things are getting a little crazy in here. So one of us, as a team member on that org dev team, spends some time, goes into a Basecamp project. It's divided up in these little projects, and we'll go one at a time, and we'll work on the folder structure and clean things up. So there's that approach, there's that burden, that need to once in a while tidy things up. There's a chance that if we had been a little better culturally at teaching everybody and insisting that they that they store things, if we'd given better instruction than we did years ago about where to store things, I'll say we sort of tell people, please store them, rather than here's how you create folder structure, what the folder structure. So ours could stand improvement on giving people cleaner instruction about, hey, if you're filing a document, where should you put it? But at least it gets filed, and we can tidy up a little bit. So we go in and tidy up. That's one answer to your question. We haven't limited what gets stored. And for the longest time, it didn't matter. We just recently bumped into storage problem limits on Basecamp, and Matthew's been dealing with that and trying to figure out what we can remove a little bit. Another thing we need to do yet that we haven't is write a document retention policy. And that's, like a good organization should have legally have that. And especially as we start looking at legal documents we're holding on to, how long do you at least have to hold them versus how long do you want to hold them, that sort of thing. And that's on our to-do list, to be honest. So, and that would help us maybe purge some or move things off. We have also moved a few things off of Basecamp and just filed them, stuff that we know we don't need very much, stick it in a Dropbox project or whatever. So we've done a little bit of that too. No one perfect answer to your question. It is, those things are true. We hear you, Evan.
I'm going to jump back real quickly to Sheila had asked about ClickUp, and yes, I was not remembering. Once I saw the logo, it clicked with me. I've not used it personally. I helped a company that is using it. It was the one thing that I really liked about it. It was highly customizable. But if I remember right, and take this with a grain of salt, because I'm certainly not a ClickUp expert, highly customizable sometimes also means lots of options that you have to be watching for. And so I think for us, we actually liked a system that kind of, it is what it is. There's a little bit of customization around there, but the tool feels the same for everyone. There's not a lot of options that you have to learn. There's not a lot of selections and choices. And sometimes the almost limitless customizability, is that a word? Limitless customizability of a tool can make administration of that very, very hard. Sheila, I will, if you will shoot me a note, shoot me an email. It's just Matthew R at Chicago. Yeah, and remind me, and I'll try to get with that, my friend's company that was using it. I'll see if they're still using it, and maybe he can give a few pros and cons that I'll share with you.
Yeah, a colleague of ours in his business is using it, and he had brought it up, and I think we're going to work closely together as our store gets built out. And so I wanted to visit it and see if we can use it all together. So we're really all truly staying on the same page and speaking the same language.
I'll tell you what, music to my ears. Do that. Do that. Yeah, get on the same page, stay on the same page. That is fantastic. No, that's absolutely wonderful. And if I'm not mistaken, the pricing is actually pretty reasonable on ClickUp AI too. So yeah, great option. If you have someone else that's using it, that's a great way to start to find a tool, because that gives you sort of that expert built in at the start. Make sure he's not the only, I think you said he, but make sure that person is not the only one that knows it in 6 months. Doesn't have to be today. They could be your expert, but yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I think just to touch on what Evan was saying, and I think to really strip this down and think of it as just a big old giant filing cabinet. That's really what the document repository, I think in my head, that's how I treat it. And, you keep the papers neat and you keep them in alphabetical order or in chronological order, and then it stays organized and it hopefully keeps from getting too messy too quick.
Very, very true. Well said. We do have a couple more minutes for questions. Grant and I certainly could stay a little later if anyone has it, but if there aren't any more, we're happy to let everyone go on their way as well.
Hey, I have not so much a question as just a comment.
Please.
We use Google Docs, and
Yep.
we were contacted by our state's Community Development Finance Authority asking how they could help us. And we were surprised by that because typically they support nonprofits. But they said they wanted to give us some money. So our vice chair went into our Google Docs, and we have a folder with all of our past grant applications, and she cut and pasted. And this afternoon, talk about dramatic timing, this afternoon, we were told we're going to get $25,000 to support our outreach. How about that?
That's awesome.
Peter, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
How much are you kind of broke up? How much again?
$25,000. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Love it.
That's so fantastic. And Peter, if I could, just from the standpoint of, if you're all not familiar with the Google Suite, check it out. It becomes real easy to use things. It's sort of one of the simplest steps that you could take is to have some of those documents that you can collaborate on and take a look at together. And what a perfect example of sort of that being ready to be lucky, right? It was easy to grab the things because you put it in there. So Peter, if we could do, I don't know how to do a virtual high five, but I would high five you really, really high right now if we could. That's fantastic. Congratulations and kudos to you for being ready. Yeah, being ready for that. So.
All right, well, I'm gonna wrap us up. I want to thank Grant and Matthew for being here and sharing all their extensive experience, not only with their co-op, but professionally with working with these systems. You guys have been asking for more and more on this. I have a feeling we might be asking them to come back and go on more in depth on some of the pieces with examples as was brought up. But thanks so much to both of them for being here for this evening. They have said they're willing to stay another minute or two. So if you have another question or want to converse with them once we're done recording, just give us 1 minute. We can do that. Coming up next week, we are done for this week. We got a lot more sessions next week. Please check them out. We'll be sending out another registration email tomorrow. We'll be doing one on using visible timelines on Monday. And we have a new template at FCI that you can use to put your co-op's logo and colors in there and create your own little timeline image to tell people these are the stages and steps, what we have to accomplish, here's where we are, and how they can get involved. So we'll show you a little bit about that and how to utilize them to make them really effective communication tools. Then I'm really excited about this one. I hope a lot of you come out. Monday night, we have the West Georgia Farmers Cooperative coming to share their story, and their story is incredibly unique. This is actually a farmer cooperative since the 1960s in rural Georgia, not too far outside of Atlanta. It is Black farmers. It is a Black-owned cooperative that has decided to vastly expand their mission by building a grocery store where they will sell their products as well as other products and meet the grocery needs of their community. It is a really interesting story, really powerful one. I hope you come out and support them and hear about what they're doing. And then we have Rachel Dominguez-Benner back by popular request talking about content calendars. And what a content calendar is for those of you who don't know, is planning out your social media as a startup food co-op and how to use these calendars to make sure you're effectively communicating and you know what to communicate. So please join us for that. Thank you again to our FCI Live sponsors for our summer 2023 series. We could not do it without you all, especially National Co-op Grocers. All right, and with that, I